The numbers Wall Street doesn't want you to see are terrifying. New York City's financial landscape is undergoing a significant transformation, marked by a corporate exodus that threatens to bankrupt the most important city in the world. Before we dive into the socialist policies triggering this collapse, make sure to hit that subscribe button for Tax Hack Pro. We break down the tax laws and economic shifts that the mainstream media tries to hide. New York City's financial dominance is crumbling, and the blame is being placed squarely on the tax policies of the newly elected socialist mayor, Zohran Mamdani. Mamdani, who assumed office on January 1, 2026, as the 112th mayor of New York City, has championed a progressive agenda focused on affordability and wealth redistribution. But what sounds like a utopia on a campaign flyer is quickly turning into an economic nightmare in reality. His platform, influenced by democratic socialist ideals and figures like Bernie Sanders and Alexandria Ocasio-Cortez, includes proposals for higher taxes on corporations and high-income earners. Universal child care, fare-free public transit, and extensive social housing initiatives. These are massive, expensive programs that require an endless stream of tax revenue. Mamdani's key tax proposals include a 2% income surtax on earnings over $1 million and an increase in the corporate tax rate from 7.25% to 11.5%. These measures aim to generate an estimated $9 billion annually to fund his social programs, including a $6 billion universal child care plan. While proponents argue these policies will create a more equitable and affordable New York, critics, including business leaders and financial professionals, express grave concerns about a potential acceleration of corporate and wealthy resident flight from the city. Just days into his mayoralty, Mamdani, alongside Governor Kathy Hochul, announced a plan to provide free child care for 2-year-olds in New York City, with a state investment of $1.7 billion for statewide child care expansion. This initiative is part of a broader goal to achieve universal child care for children under 5. Mamdani's administration has also focused on other social issues, including strengthening tenant protections, creating a social housing development agency to build 200,000 affordable units, and supporting a $30 minimum wage by 2030. However, the proposed tax hikes have drawn significant attention and concern because the math simply does not add up. The 2% surtax on millionaires would raise the top marginal city-state income tax rate to 16.8%. That makes it significantly higher than any other state in the union. This is particularly stark when compared to states like Texas and Florida, which have no state income tax. 0. The corporate tax increase to 11.5% would match New Jersey's rate, one of the highest in the U.S. Catherine Wilda, president and CEO of the Partnership for New York City, a prominent nonprofit business organization, has voiced serious concerns about the shrinking financial services industry in New York. She describes the shift of jobs to states with lower costs of living and doing business as a scary development that raises questions about New York's economic competitiveness. Wilda notes that while company headquarters might remain in New York for prestige, the actual tax base is shrinking as professionals relocate. She points out the significant tax advantage in states like Texas, where financial professionals can retain a much larger portion of their earnings compared to New York. Wilda has been a long-standing advocate for a strong economic climate in New York and emphasizes the importance of a diverse range of support to achieve success in the city. She has stressed that the financial and professional services, media, information, and real estate sectors directly employ 1.2 million New Yorkers and indirectly support an additional 2.1 million jobs. They are also a major source of the city's tax revenue. Wilda and the business community are reportedly terrified of Mamdani's policies, fearing federal funding cuts and the financial implications of policies that target New York's primary economic engines. While some studies suggest that the actual migration rates of millionaires due to tax increases are low and that social ties often outweigh tax incentives, the increasing cost of living in New York and the more attractive business environments in other states are undeniable factors influencing corporate decisions. The situation presents a complex challenge for New York City. While Mamdani's policies aim to address critical social and economic inequalities, the potential for a continued exodus of high-value businesses and individuals could have significant long-term consequences for the city's financial health and global standing. The tax nightmare driving everyone away. Let me break down what it actually costs to be successful in New York City right now, because the numbers are staggering. Federal income tax takes up to 37% of your paycheck. New York state tax takes up to 10.9%, one of the highest rates in the nation. Then, New York City tax adds another 3.876% on top of that. Add it all up, and you're paying over 50% of your income in taxes if you are a high earner in NYC. You work for the government from January until July. Now Mamdani wants to add another 2% on top of that for anyone making over $1 million. So we are talking about a combined tax rate of over 52% on ordinary income. And here is the part that really hurts. New York taxes capital gains as ordinary income. There is no break for investment income like most states give you. That means if you sell stock, sell property, or sell a business you spent decades building, New York hits you with that same crushing tax rate. Meanwhile, in Florida, zero state income tax, zero capital gains tax at the state level. In Texas, same deal, no state income tax whatsoever. Mamdani thinks people are just going to sit there and accept paying 52% while Floridians and Texans keep all their money. He is living in a fantasy world. If you want to know how to protect your assets from these crushing tax hikes, subscribe to Tax Hack Pro. We track the laws so you don't have to. The middle class is fleeing faster than the rich. Here is what the media gets wrong about this story. They keep talking about billionaire flight like it is some myth made up by conservatives, but the data tells a completely different story. Between June 2024 and October 2025, over 128,000 people left New York City, the biggest group leaving. People making $51,000 to $100,000 a year, that is over 66,000 people. These aren't billionaires. These are teachers, nurses, firefighters, mid-level professionals, the second biggest group. People making $101,000 to $200,000, another 62,000 people gone. These are the people who make the city actually function. And they are running for the exits because they cannot afford to live there anymore. Why? Because a one-bedroom apartment in Manhattan averages over $4,500 a month. Property taxes keep going up. The cost of groceries, gas, everything is crushing them. And now Mamdani wants to squeeze them even harder to pay for his socialist programs, where smart people are moving. Florida is the #1 destination. Nearly 17% of everyone leaving NYC is headed to the Sunshine State. Over 125,000 New Yorkers fled to Florida in recent years, taking $14 billion in income with them. That is billion with a B, $14 billion in taxable income that used to flow into New York's coffers. Gone, but Texas is crushing it too, and here is why. Jamie Dimon, CEO of J.P. Morgan Chase, said it himself. Texas loves you being there. He praised Texas's lack of income tax and its light regulatory touch. He said mayors and governors in Texas actually call him up and ask, "What can we do to get more employees?" Can you imagine a New York politician doing that? They are more likely to call you up and ask how much more they can tax you. J.P. Morgan's workforce in Texas has exploded from 400 in 2003 to over 31,000 today. Meanwhile, New York's total has dropped from 35,000 to less than 24,000. Dimon even said back in 2020, there are more J.P. Morgan Chase employees in Texas than any other state outside of New York. I'm sure it will be #1 soon. Well, guess what? He was right. Texas is now #1. The cost of living crisis makes leaving inevitable. Catherine Wilde from the Partnership for NYC laid out the brutal reality in a recent interview. We are now one of the most expensive cities in the world. We are the most expensive city in terms of cost of living in America. Car insurance in NYC costs 49% higher than the national average. Litigation costs are among the highest in the nation. Commercial rent is astronomical. Energy costs are through the roof, and that is all before Mamdani's massive tax increases. Here is what happens when you combine punishing taxes with crushing costs of living. People leave. It isn't complicated. A finance professional making $250,000 in New York pays over $80,000 in federal, state, and city income taxes. Then they pay $4,500 a month for a one-bedroom apartment. That is another $54,000 a year just for rent. They are spending $134,000 before they even buy groceries or pay for transportation. That same person in Texas pays about $65,000 in federal taxes. They rent a nice apartment for $2,000 a month. That is $89,000 total. They are saving $45,000 a year just by moving to Texas, every single year. After 10 years, that is $450,000 in savings. That is a down payment on a house. That is retirement security. That is generational wealth. And Mamdani thinks they are going to stay in New York out of loyalty to the city. The corporate tax disaster waiting to happen. Mamdani wants to raise the corporate tax rate from 9% to 11.5%. He says this will match New Jersey's rate, but that is a lie by omission. New Jersey's state corporate tax is 11.5%, but New Jersey doesn't have an additional city corporate tax. New York State's rate is about 7.25%, but New York City adds another 9% on top of that for a combined rate of around 16.25%. If Mamdani raises the city rate to 11.5%, the combined New York City corporate rate would be close to 19%. New Jersey's total rate, 11.5%. New York City would have nearly double the corporate tax rate of New Jersey. What do you think happens when a company can move 20 miles west across the Hudson River and cut their tax bill in half? They move. That is what happens. Andrew Cuomo, the former governor, warned about this exact scenario. He said, "You would see a flight to New Jersey, unprecedented." He is absolutely right, and it isn't just New Jersey. Companies are also looking at Connecticut, Pennsylvania, even New Hampshire, all of which have lower combined corporate rates than what Mamdani is proposing, the economic fallacy at the heart of socialism. Mamdani's campaign website literally says, "Lower is not always better" when talking about tax rates. Let me translate that for you. We are going to tax you as much as we want, and you are going to like it. His team claims New York City has a $1.3 trillion economy that can afford to support a stronger public sector. They say the tax base is stable and growing, with new millionaires minted every year. Here is what they are missing. Those millionaires can move. Businesses can relocate. Capital is mobile. This isn't 1950, when moving your company meant physically relocating massive factories and heavy equipment. This is 2026. Finance professionals can work from anywhere. Companies can shift operations with a few Zoom calls and some lease negotiations. Mamdani is making the classic socialist mistake. He thinks the economy is static, that he can just tax productive people and businesses and they will sit there and take it. But the economy is dynamic. People respond to incentives. When you punish success, you get less of it. When you make it expensive to do business somewhere, businesses leave. When you tax people at over 50%, they move to states with no income tax. These aren't complicated concepts. This is basic economics. But socialists never learn. They think this time will be different. This time, taxing people into oblivion will create a worker's paradise. It never does. It never has, and it never will. This isn't unique to New York. We are seeing the same pattern all across America. California has been hemorrhaging population and businesses for years. Tesla moved to Texas. Oracle moved to Texas. Hewlett-Packard Enterprise moved to Texas. Illinois is losing people at record rates. Caterpillar moved their headquarters to Texas. Boeing moved to Virginia. Citadel moved to Miami. And it is always the same story. High taxes, heavy regulations, hostile business climate. So companies and high earners leave for states that actually want them. Red states with low taxes and light regulation are booming. Texas, Florida, Tennessee, Arizona, all seeing massive population and economic growth. Blue states with high taxes and heavy regulation are shrinking. California, Illinois, New York, all losing population and tax revenue. The experiment has been run. We know which model works. But instead of learning from California's mistakes, Mamdani is going to repeat them in New York. Catherine Wilda tried to sound optimistic in her interview. She said, "I'm trying to assure people that New York is bigger than one person." She talked about how New York has leaders in the nonprofit sector, in the cultural sector, in business, who will stick with the city. She called the partnership part of New York's permanent government that will work with whomever is mayor. But you could hear the desperation in her voice. Because she knows the truth. Mamdani's policies are going to be devastating for New York's economy. She understands the business community's concerns about a democratic socialist mayor who wants to double corporate taxes and soak the rich. And all she can do is hope that no one person, no one leader is a threat to New York as long as we all stick with the city. But people aren't sticking with the city. They are leaving by the tens of thousands. And Mamdani's policies are going to accelerate that exodus into a stampede. The timeline of collapse. Here is exactly what is going to happen. Months 1 through 3, more companies will quietly announce they are expanding in other states. They won't hold press conferences saying they are leaving New York, but they will stop growing there. New hires will be in Texas, Florida, Tennessee. Months 4 through 6, the first wave of official relocations. Small and medium-sized businesses that cannot afford Mamdani's tax increases. They will close their New York operations and reopen in business-friendly states. Months 7 through 9. Mamdani will push his tax increases through the state legislature. Some will pass, taxes will go up, and the exodus will accelerate. Months 10 through 12, major companies will start making moves. Not full headquarters relocations necessarily, but significant operations shifted out of state. Thousands of jobs moved to Texas, Florida, and other red states. Year 2, the revenue shortfall becomes undeniable. Mamdani raised taxes, but revenues fell because so many people and businesses left, so he will propose even higher taxes to make up the difference. Year 3, fiscal crisis. The city can't pay for basic services. Quality of life deteriorates. Even more people leave. The death spiral is complete. This is the inevitable result of Mamdani's socialist policies. It isn't speculation. It is economics. If you are a CEO with significant operations in New York right now, you have a decision to make. Do you stay and pay double the corporate taxes? Do you accept that over half your high-earning employees' income will go to taxes? Or do you move to Texas, where there is no state income tax, lower corporate rates, cheaper real estate, and a government that actually wants your business? For some companies, the cultural amenities and talent pool of New York are worth the premium. The city still has incredible restaurants, world-class museums, unmatched energy. But for how long? When the tax base collapses and the city can't maintain services, when crime increases and quality of life decreases. When the best talent is leaving for greener pastures, what is left? New York has been coasting on its reputation for decades, the reputation of being the place where anything is possible, where dreams come true, where the best and brightest come to succeed, but reputations can be destroyed. Just ask Detroit, Chicago, San Francisco, cities that were once great American metropolises that let progressive policies destroy their economic foundation. New York is next in line. Jamie Dimon has been remarkably candid about this issue. Back in February 2024, he told reporters in Houston, "Mayors and governors call you up here and they say, 'Jamie, what can we do to get more employees?'" Then he added, "And you can look at other states which are almost completely opposite." He was contrasting Texas's business-friendly approach with New York's hostile attitude. He praised Texas's lack of income tax and light regulatory touch. And here is the thing, Dimon has been trying to stay in New York. He just spent $3 billion on that massive new headquarters tower in Midtown. He is consolidating some operations back to the city, but even he has limits. Even he cannot ignore basic economics forever. When your employee headcount in Texas is 7,500 higher than in New York, that isn't an accident. That is a conscious business decision based on cold, hard math. And if Mamdani pushes through his massive tax increases, even Dimon won't be able to justify keeping significant operations in New York. The economic case for Texas will become overwhelming. Here is the tragedy in all of this. The people who will suffer most aren't the rich who can afford to leave. It is the working-class New Yorkers who cannot afford to move, who will be stuck dealing with deteriorating city services, higher crime, and fewer job opportunities. They are the ones who voted for Mamdani thinking he would make their lives better. Instead, his policies are going to destroy the tax base that funds city services, drive away the companies that provide good-paying jobs, accelerate the decline into fiscal crisis. The rich will be fine. They will move to Miami or Austin and enjoy lower taxes and better weather. The middle class will struggle, but eventually escape to the suburbs or other states. The poor will be trapped, living in a city that cannot afford to maintain its infrastructure, cannot afford adequate police and fire protection, cannot afford good schools. That is the real cost of Mamdani's socialist experiment. Let me make this crystal clear. Zohran Mamdani's economic policies are going to be catastrophic for New York City. You cannot tax your way to prosperity. You cannot punish success and expect more of it. You cannot make your city the most expensive place in America and expect people and businesses to stay. These are fundamental economic truths that have been proven throughout history. But every generation of socialists thinks they will be different, that their version of high taxes and big government will finally work. It won't. It never does. J.P. Morgan Chase has already voted with its feet. 31,500 employees in Texas, only 24,000 in New York. Goldman Sachs is building a $500 million campus in Dallas. Wells Fargo has a massive new campus in Texas. Texas now has more finance jobs than New York for the first time in modern history. The exodus has already begun. Mamdani's policies are going to turn it into a stampede. If you are a business owner in New York City, you need to start planning your exit strategy now. If you are a high earner, you need to seriously consider whether paying 52% or more in taxes is worth it. If you are a working-class New Yorker, you need to understand that Mamdani's promises of free services are going to come at the cost of your city's economic future. The smart money is already leaving. J.P. Morgan didn't add 7,500 more employees in Texas than New York by accident. The question is, are you going to be smart and get out early, Or are you going to be the last one holding the bag when the tax base collapses and the city goes broke? If you want to be smart about your money and avoid these tax traps, hit the subscribe button for Tax Hack Pro. We help you navigate the system so you don't get crushed by it. What do you think? Are you seeing businesses leave your city? Drop a comment and let me know if this pattern is hitting where you live. Mamdani's first year is going to be an absolute disaster, and I am going to document every step of it. Up next, I'm breaking down exactly how California's policies destroyed San Francisco and why the same playbook is now being run in New York. The similarities will shock you. I'll see you in the next video.